Hello, lovely people. I am filming this on December 1st, and I'm so feeling in the holiday spirit. Today, I've been feeling it for a while now. So today we are going to be doing my December TBR. These are all of the books that I'm hoping to read in December. I will mention to you that I'm not doing Vlogmas per se this year, videos every single day of December. I'm not doing that, but I'm going to do like my half-hearted. I don't know if that's the right terminology because I'm very full-hearted in this effort. But I'm kind of going in and vlogging a little bit for Vlogmas and also sharing a little bit more videos just generally. So I hope that you like it. I don't know if this will be the first or something else will be the first that you'll see of it, but we are going to dive into what I'm hoping to read this December. We're going to start out with a book of the month. I've been working with them throughout the year. I love working with them. And they sent me 2 books. I got to pick the 2 for December. I'm going to choose between the 2 books that they sent to add one to my December TBR. So let's see what is in the book of the month box itself. Well, I know because I chose it. It is a thriller called All the Dangerous Things by Stacey Willingham. She came out with another book, which I have on my Kobo. I have not read that one yet, but it was quite a popular book. And so this is her latest. So this is a heart-wrenching and gripping story about a woman named Isabel who has literally the worst nightmare happen to her. Her toddler son, Mason, was abducted from his crib in the middle of the night. I believe this happened a year ago. And since then, really not a lot has happened. There's not a lot of leads. The case itself has gone cold. But of course, she cannot move on because her son is out there in the world somewhere, hopefully, and she needs to find him. And it's led her to have a case of severe insomnia. And I can actually completely understand that. I think most people could understand that happening. And she's at the point where she'll do practically anything. So she's trying to get the case kind of reinvigorated and on the minds of people. And so she decides that she will talk to a true crime podcaster about the case. But the questions that he is asking her are very invasive, and she's extremely uncomfortable with it, but she's also dealing with this severe insomnia. So she's like, maybe it's not invasive. Maybe I'm just making too much of this. It sounds really good. And so I think I might end up reading this one for December, but let me show you the other book that they sent as well, because it's kind of a toss-up. The next book is The Light Pirate, and this has a bit of a dystopian vibe to it that's very linked to climate change. So in this not so distant future, I believe, we follow a family in Florida. There is a hurricane named Wanda coming through, which is absolutely devastating. Now, Florida has been kind of falling and crumbling due to climate change for many years, and Wanda is kind of the epitome of it. So this family consists of a husband and wife, their 2 boys, and the wife, Frida, is pregnant also. So at some point during this event, they're trying to get away to safety. The boys go missing, and the husband, Kirby, goes after the boys. In the meantime, Frida goes into labor and gives birth to a baby girl named Wanda. And she names the baby after the hurricane that they're dealing with, which is an interesting choice. But we follow Wanda, who is an interesting child, an unusual child. And we follow Wanda through her childhood and into adulthood. And her experience living in this world and her losses and triumphs. And It sounds very interesting, very dystopian. I will say, I don't think this is for December for me in my mind. This might be something better to read in the new year. So I think I'm going to put All the Dangerous Things on my December TBR. Now, as you know, Book of the Month, I am a huge fan, and they have finally come to Canada, which I know so many of you guys are excited about. If you guys have not signed up yet, they have a really amazing deal actually for December. You can get your first book for just $5 if you use the word wonder as the code. So just plop in the word wonder and you'll get the first book for $5, which is incredible. And it's really nice because Book of the Month like has such an array. Like, yes, I'm usually attracted to like thrillers, as you know, horror, historical fiction, literary fiction. That's usually what I choose from, but they have fantasy on there and sci-fi and so many options. And they like really comb through what is being released and take their time, and you can see that in the choices that they make. Like, I think Babel was one of the options that I could have chose for December, which is a huge book. I feel like all of my fantasy friends out there who are booktubers who read a lot of fantasy are really excited about Babel. So in any case, definitely check out that deal. That's, I think, the best deal I've seen from them thus far, like $5. Holy crap. Moving right along, for our December TBR, I want to talk about the books that I'm currently reading that I will continue to read in December. First up, we have The Animals at Lockwood Manor by Jane Healey. I'm loving this book. I am so hooked on this storyline. It is eerie and gothic. This follows a woman in World War II. Hetty ends up leaving London and bringing artifacts from the Natural History Museum to the countryside in the hopes of keeping these artifacts safe. So we're talking mostly like rare stuffed animals, like taxidermy stuff. And so she brings all of these things to a place called Lockwood Manor. And there she meets the owner of Lockwood Manor, Mr. Lockwood himself, as well as their daughter, Lucy Lockwood, who deals with a lot of nerves. So we kind of go backwards and forwards from perspectives. From Hetty's perspective, overseeing the collection and making sure the collection is as safe as possible, and having strange things happen, like bits and pieces of the collection moving around the house without her knowledge, some of the pieces going missing. And then we follow Lucy Lockwood and her experience living in this house while also dealing with anxiety and some of the scary things that she encounters, like potentially a woman in white. It is genuinely eerie might be the right word, dark, unsettling, not overly scary, I would say. If you like historical fiction and you want a little bit of darkness, I would highly recommend this book. This is the first Jane Healey book I've read. I've got her other book, The Ophelia Girls, on my Kobo ready to read because I'm just loving her writing. It's so, so good. I'd also say if you like Stacey Halls, check out Jane Healey. I am also listening to a book on audio called Wintering. I forget the subtitle. The Power of Rest and Retreat During Difficult Times. And it is a wonderful audio. It's narrated by an English author, like a British narrator, I should say. And it's such a comforting kind of story, nonfiction. And yet it is about depression, and she speaks to her own depression that she experienced in her life, her bouts of depression that she's had through her life, and how our world kind of encourages us to just forge forward, you know, don't stop, keep going. And yet what is necessary in those moments are to rest and retreat and essentially hibernate. So she explores this process that she has come to embrace by speaking about winter. And so I believe it kind of starts in November and moves through the winter season, and it's just so beautifully interlinked between nature and what is happening to nature during the winter time, and then what happens to yourself when you're going through hard times. I'm not going through a particularly hard time at the moment, actually, at all, but it is so insightful, and I'm really enjoying it and appreciating it. Moving on to a few books that are a bit Christmassy that I want to read. First is one that just came to the library, which is exciting. This is a book that Lauren from Lauren and the Books has absolutely loved. This is Nigel Slater's The Christmas Chronicles. Now, this kind of combines his love for winter and Christmas with his love of cooking and kind of mixes the two. I won't be reading the entire thing, but I am going to read, it's dated, so you read a little short chapter here and there per day in December. So that's my plan, is to read a portion of this from December 1st to December 25th. And maybe if I'm like completely loving it, like it goes right through into January. And there's lots of little recipes in here, and it sounds absolutely lovely. So that is the plan for kind of like my bookish advent, if that makes any sense. Next is a book that's fantasy meets historical fiction in my mind. This is Midnight in Everwood. This takes place in 1906 in Nottingham, and we meet a ballerina named Marietta. Now, she is getting older as a ballerina. This might be her last year actually dancing, and she's kind of being encouraged to marry, essentially, and put her professional life aside, when she meets Uncle Drosselmeyer, who is creating the set for the ballet she's about to star in. And the set itself is magical, and she finds herself moving into that world, essentially. What is that world called in the Nutcracker? Is it the land of dolls or something along those lines? It sounds absolutely magical. It sounds wonderful because it still has that like historical fiction vibe that I love. So I absolutely want to read this. It's just perfect for this time of year. Everyone and their dog is going to be shocked when I tell you that I kind of want to read a romance in December. Like, is this, am I having a Grinch moment where my heart is growing at a rapid rate? I don't know what's happening, but I kind of want to read In a Holidaze by Christina Lauren. I've never read her before, but this book is a bit of a Groundhog Day story, in which we meet a woman who's not doing great in her life, but for Christmas she goes to this kind of cabin, and it's her retreat, it's her place that brings her joy, and she's going there, I believe, to be with her family for Christmas. You meet this woman when she's actually driving away. The holiday has happened. She's driving away in tears. Everything went horribly. And then she gets into a car crash, and when she wakes up, she's starting back at the very beginning of the holiday. And essentially, I think she's meant to redo the holiday over and over again until she finds her true love or something ridiculous. Like, as I'm saying it, it's so not me. It's so not me. And yet, here I am. There's just something about this time of year that brings this out in me. So I would like to read that. This next one is more my style, let's say. And this is The Family Game by Catherine Steadman. Now, I think this might take place, I don't know if it's actually Christmas or if it's more like Thanksgiving time, but we follow a woman named Harriet who has recently become engaged to Edward. He is part of a really, really powerful family. Now, she, in her own right, is an author like on the brink of stardom. Her books are becoming more and more popular. And so when she goes to meet Edward's family, they're actually quite welcoming, and she's like, okay, great. This is like kind of calming. And then Edward's dad he's a writer, but he wants to be a writer. And he's like, here's my book. And he hands her this tape, I think. And she presses play, and it's clear that this isn't just a novel, it's a confession to a grisly murder. And then the game is suddenly in motion. She has to figure out what to do. Like, does she respond? Does she tell her soon-to-be husband what's going on? It sounds like so much fun. I do really like reading and watching stories about like families getting together at this time of year, because there are a lot of families getting together, and it just sounds like I wouldn't want to be a part of this family, no matter how much money. I just wouldn't want to, but I know that the setting is going to be good, or could at least be good, so I have a lot of hopes for this one. Definitely want to pick that one up in December. This is a really big stack. How am I going to do this? Next is the last book in the Dublin Murder Squad series. I am very sad. It'll be okay, because I know that I'm going to be starting a whole new series next year, but I've loved this series so much. It takes place in Ireland, and I just love Irish writing. So this one is called The Trespasser, and in this book we're following two detectives who stumble on the scene of a crime in which a woman is, I think, sitting at her dining room table, murdered. And it looks like it was set as like a romantic setting. And when our main Detective Antoinette Conway, sees this woman, she's like, you seem familiar, but I cannot figure out where I know you from. And I think part of the process of this book is her figuring out how this dead woman links to her own past. It sounds great. It's always good. They're always good. So I'm going to read that. Now, okay, so here's the thing. I want to read one of these books, not both of these books, but Agatha Christie, if you don't know, went missing for like, it wasn't a week. I can't remember how many days she went missing in, was it 1925? 1926. She went missing in December 1926. And nobody knows what happened to her in that time. She, I think, came back saying she didn't remember. And both of these books kind of explores that period of time and Agatha's life itself. And so I am either going to read The Mystery of Mrs Christie or The Christie Affair. Now, The Mystery of Mrs Christie, I think it really focuses on exclusively these days that she was gone missing. I think it was 11 days. And we follow, I believe, detectives trying to find out what happened to her. I don't know if it follows her at all. But I'm kind of leaning towards this one because I'm so fascinated by that. I don't know why, but there's something about it that I just want to know, even though we'll never know. But I like these reimaginings. And then The Christie Affair is a different kind of vantage point because it follows actually Agatha Christie's husband's mistress and her perspective on the time that she went missing, on Agatha herself, on how the husband was doing, and her own experience being, I believe, a friend of Agatha Christie's and also the lover of that woman's husband, which is bizarre. I've heard very good things about the writing of this. I'm leaning towards the other one, but we'll see. You never know. And last but not least, I believe, let me just make sure. I'm not missing anything. I'm not missing anything. Last but not least is The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. This has been on a few TBRs now. I just love her writing so much. This is historical fiction. It takes place in the 1500s in Florence, and we follow Lucrezia, who is a young woman. I would say she's a teen, and her older sister is meant to marry a duke until her older sister dies very suddenly. I think she contracted some sort of virus or flu or something along those lines and dies. And her family basically decides that Lucrezia should now marry this duke instead. She does, and it is much more tense than she was prepared for. She enters the court kind of scenario. That is uncomfortable. Her husband is not always the nicest person. There's so much pressure on her to have a baby to kind of lock down the marriage. It sounds extremely stressful, but I've heard wonderful things. Her writing just every time is good. So those are all of the books that I want to read desperately in December. Will I be able to do them all? I don't know. I'm going to try so hard. Yes, but I hope that you are going to have a wonderful reading month. Let me know what is on your TBR. Are you reading holiday books? Are you reading like light and happy books? Do you have a bit of a mix like I do? And there's always a little darkness in the books that I pick up, just on a whole. But you know, I do have quite a few. Like I have a romance in here. I'm so surprised. I hope you're gonna have a wonderful reading month, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye, guys.